My goodness, what a week for Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios and Disney. You know, obviously you had all the stuff going on with the Pandaverse and South Park basically eviscerating Disney and Star Wars. But we've had all these rumors about Kevin Feige and Marvel and things being canceled and people getting hired and people getting yelled at and everything's kind of happening in real time. Marvel Studios is just kind of falling apart, and it's the wildest thing to see because, you know, you see a few of these and you're like, that's probably bullshit. Then you're like, wow, there's a lot of smoke there. There's probably some type of fire. And it was basically kind of all confirmed in this Variety article that came out this week that we're going to talk about. And basically, like, when you look at all the things that are going on, the root problem with Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios, besides the fact that there's too much content, is they went out and hired the wrong people. They decided to promote the wrong people over and over and over again. How did Victoria Alonso ever get to be like a major Hollywood executive, you know, overseeing VFX? Wow, that fell apart. You go all in on Jonathan Majors because you think he had a good performance in the TV show Loki, even though I wouldn't even call it all that good. Like, he was all right. He was a more interesting version of the architect from whatever the second Matrix movie was. Was that Matrix Reloaded? I think that's the name of it. He was a more interesting version of that character, just saying a bunch of gobbledygook and acting kind of strange. And next thing you know, they're like, he's Thanos. He's a Thanos level threat. And I don't imagine Kevin Feige has a crystal ball and could have seen that he was going to have all these major allegations against him and all these legal problems where I believe that the girlfriend that he's accused of abusing actually worked on Marvel movies, but now she's been arrested. And all these stupid things are happening back and forth. And I'm like, I don't even know what to make of this situation. But then next, you know, like Disney are removing his movies from release and everything. So obviously there's something going on there. And I guess they had this big retreat to talk about what's our escape plan from Jonathan Majors as Kang and being the next Thanos level threat. And I guess they've concluded that maybe it's Doctor Doom. And damn, 3 years ago, I'd have been like, man, that'd be great. Doctor Doom's a billion times cooler than Kang. There's so much you can do with the character. Obviously, he ties directly into Fantastic Four, who obviously came over with the Fox acquisition and all that stuff as well. And now I'm going, no. You've already ruined Kang. Just go with it. And as you read this article from Variety and they talk about all the problems and all the things that Kevin Feige is trying to deal with, it all comes down to they hired the wrong people essentially each and every time and were their own worst enemy because they didn't go out there to hire the very best people like Marvel Studios did at the very beginning stages of the MCU. The article starts out, beyond the bad press for Majors, the brain trust at Marvel is also grappling with the November release of The Marvels, a sequel to 2019's blockbuster Captain Marvel that has been plagued with lengthy reshoots and now appears likely to underwhelm at the box office. This is all an unprecedented turn of fortune for a company that has enjoyed a nearly uninterrupted string of hits ever since it started independently, producing its movies with 2008's Iron Man. That wildly profitable run culminated in the $2.8 billion success of 2019's Avengers Endgame, a high water mark for the studio that has earned nearly $30 billion over 32 movies. And that is a lot of cheddar, and that is a lot of success, and that is a lot of expectations for Kevin Feige. And you can kind of understand why Bob Iger and Bob Chapek after him, and then Bob Iger when he returned, would have wanted the MCU to be one of the bedrocks of Disney Plus because it's the most successful entertainment franchise essentially in history, but there's way too much of it, and they kept watering it down, and they kept hiring just really bad people that were really never going to get over. Like, think about Brie Larson, think about Simu Liu, think about Tessa Thompson, think about a lot of the people that they were putting all their hopes and dreams on to continue the success of the MCU after Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans and Chris Hemsworth and Scarlett Johansson and all the original actors left. And basically they've whiffed every single time for the most part. It's actually hard to be so perfect for so long and then be so imperfect where you can't actually do anything right. Eyebrows were raised again when the Marvels director Nia DaCosta began working on another film while the Marvels was still in post-production. The filmmaker moved to London earlier this year to begin prepping for her Tessa Thompson drama Hedda. If you're directing a $250 million movie, it's kind of weird for the director to leave with a few months to go, says a source familiar with the production. Yeah, it does seem kind of weird that if a studio invested $250 million and it's likely closer to $300 million now that we've seen some of the details of that into the film that you made, and for you to leave before it's over, like, that's a lot of money. I imagine a good chunk of that also went to Nia DaCosta, the director, and she's not going to see it through to the end and make sure that this is the right movie, that this is the vision that she had for the Marvels. But apparently she was fed up or whatever. And this is what I'm talking about. Can you imagine Joss Whedon 2 months before the production's over being like, nope, you've already paid me. It's all filmed. You should have been done by now. I'm out of here. No way. That guy's a perfectionist. He would have stayed to the very end. You might not like him, but he's more professional as a director when it comes to making sure that the movie is done than Nia DaCosta. And Marvel and Disney basically shot themselves in the foot because they weren't going after the best directors. They weren't going after the people with the best cinematic feel and the best visions for the characters or anything like that. They were just going out there to tick boxes. Yes, let's get some women on our major action movies. Let's go out there and make sure that we've got a lot of diversity in our writers and stuff. And it turns out it was a stick of Acme Dynamite. They were Wile E. Coyote, and it blew up in their faces as you would have imagined it would have. And this is a great example. The director of the Marvels, and it looks like it's going to be very bad, leaving months before the production was actually over. That's on Kevin Feige. He's the leader. He didn't hire somebody that actually was invested in the property. He didn't hire somebody that was going to see it through to the end. And he needs to think about who he's working with from here on out. Another big case of this, Feige is pulling the plug on scripts and projects that aren't working. Case in point, the Blade reboot. With Mahershala Ali signed on for the role of a vampire, things look promising for a 2023 release date, but the project has gone through at least 5 writers, 2 directors, and 1 shutdown 6 weeks before production. One person familiar with the script permutation says the story at one point morphed into a narrative led by women and filled with life lessons. Blade was relegated to the 4th lead, a bizarre idea considering that the studio had 2-time Oscar winner Ali on board. I cannot fathom anyone going out there and hiring somebody that actually incompetent, that stupid, that would take the Blade character, which is proven in movies. Obviously, he had his own franchise under Wesley Snipes, popular character, really cool stuff to do. The Daywalker, he fights vampires. Maybe he fights something else. It's not the hardest thing in the world to put that story together and put it together in a way that's really fun, and really attracts a lot of people and makes, $800 million, $900 million with the Marvel Studios brand behind it. And you actually hired somebody that made Blade the 4th lead in the movie and made his daughter and her lesbian friends like the fucking stars in the movie. It feels like you intentionally have to go out there and hire somebody that stupid that when they finally had their major break and an opportunity to write a Blade movie starring a 2-time Oscar winner, let's make him not a big deal. He's the least important character, in the entire feature film. And this stuff keeps happening over and over and over again with these Marvel Studios movies and television shows. Starting in phase 4, everything just kind of blows up. Is this an action franchise? Is it still supposed to be superheroes? Because it feels like a whole lot of slice of life bullshit to me. And, who goes to a Blade movie for life lessons other than, have holy water and garlic on you so you can fight the fucking vampires and know where the Daywalker is? Like, those are the lessons that you need to learn, in a Blade movie. How much fun was it? Did you bring enough popcorn to last the entire film as you're enjoying a really cool portrayal of a really cool hero out there? But it feels like Kevin Feige's been sabotaging himself for years and years and years. My goodness, how many times can this stuff blow up in your face before you realize it's time to just hire somebody that wants to make a fucking good Blade movie, that wants to work with Mahershala Ali and make something cool that kind of feels like the Wesley Snipes movies that made a lot of money, and bring the thing back and see if you can revive the brand and not kill it outright. And obviously, this is all leading up to a moment we've been expecting for a long time. They're going to have to bring the original heroes back. Sources say there have been talks to bring back the original gang for an Avengers movie. This would include reviving Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man and Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow, both of whom were killed off in Endgame. But the studio hasn't yet committed to the idea. If it were able to bring those actors back, it wouldn't come cheap. Sources say Downey Jr.'s upfront salary for Iron Man 3 was around $25 million. No, that wouldn't come cheap. $25 million is a lot of money. But you know what happened with every single Avengers movie fronted by Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man? They all made at least $1 billion and got all the way up to $2.8 billion because people actually like these actors portraying these characters. This is the version of the universe that they like. They thought it didn't matter who the heroes or the actors were anymore. We're bigger than the actors. We're the brand. Marvel Studios or the MCU was the reason to go to movie theaters, and watch the movie. It wasn't because there was a competent story. It wasn't because you had invested in the character. It wasn't because you enjoy that universe. You just like Marvel Studios. So yeah, we'll replace Captain America with fucking Brie Larson. We'll replace Iron Man with fucking Shang-Chi. Hell, we'll even replace the real Black Panther with Shuri, and you guys will eat it up. Well, it turned out that wasn't the case, but that was supposed to be like the next, team of Avengers or whatever. And it was never going to work, because we all know there's a reboot just around the corner, right? Secret Wars, there's going to be a convergence, and they're going to do a reboot. That's likely what we're going to see. Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth, fucking Scarlett Johansson, all these actors come back and reprise these roles and try to save the franchise. But even at one point, they thought, well, let's go with young Avengers. Yeah, that'll really work. Everybody wants to see Ironheart and fucking fake Hawkeye and Gogurt Hulk and all these other lame-ass characters that you've already introduced, and fucking Stinger and all this stuff. No, people want to see cool heroes with cool origins doing cool stuff on screen. And it feels like Marvel just lost that. And now they're going to have to go out there and pay a whole lot of money. And if Robert Downey Jr. charges them $50 million to star in another Avengers movie, he'll probably be worth it. And I'm rooting for Robert Downey Jr. because he's not the one that destroyed the reputation of the MCU. He's not the one that devalued Marvel Studios. It's a lot on Kevin Feige and all of his decisions and just hiring the wrong people over and over again, and not realizing that you had your A-list stars, you had your team, and it was going to take a lot of work for people to continue buying into it without those stars. And they went out there and hired like the most obnoxious fucking people in the world, I assume on purpose. Like, yeah, you go, girl. You tell those guys what you think of their action franchise that, has made $30 billion over whatever movies. It's absolute suicide on the part of Kevin Feige, and you have all this stuff happening this week. But hey, man, you kind of earned it at this point, and this is the way that the Variety article ends. The key to reinvigorating Marvel may lie with the superhero arsenal that Disney acquired, such as the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, back under the studio's control. Already, fans are geeking out about next year's Deadpool 3, which reunites Ryan Reynolds' Merc with the Mouth with Hugh Jackman's Wolverine in a reboot of Fantastic Four slated for 2025. And yeah, they're probably going to have to lean heavily on the X-Men and the Fantastic Four to bring some life back into the MCU as we wait for the Secret Wars to get here and kind of reboot everything and actually bring back the heroes that we know and love. You could probably recast them if you did it well. And I think a lot of people probably still would have been on board with that as long as you kept the heroes that they actually liked. But they decided to kill them all off and think that fucking Brie Larson's going to be a new headliner. It was just never going to happen. They did so much damage in the meantime that, if I'm an X-Men fan, and I'm definitely an X-Men fan, I'm pretty hesitant about this. I'm a Fantastic Four fan. I'm pretty damn hesitant to actually trust Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios anymore, that they're actually going to deliver a good Fantastic Four movie. Is it even possible? They've tried it 3 or 4 times. It's never really worked. They're definitely going to be leaning heavily on these new characters and ideas that have been introduced. Obviously, they're not new characters and ideas. They've been in Marvel Comics for decades upon decades, some of these for like 80 years. But they're certainly new to the MCU, and they're trying to create new interest in the Marvels by putting a Kelsey Grammer Beast cameo, I guess, in the end credit scene. That's probably not going to do it, but I imagine a lot of people are going to be excited to see Hugh Jackman's Wolverine tell Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool to fuck off a lot, which is obviously a lot of fun in the comic books. And, they're going to have to work on a lot of nostalgia just to get people into the theaters and not lose a ton of money while they actually build this thing back up again. So, Kevin Feige, you've got your work cut out for you, but hey, you had unprecedented levels of success there for a minute, but you believed your press, you believed in your own ego, and you thought you could just hire anybody, and it didn't matter if they were professionals. It didn't matter if they could actually direct. It didn't matter if they liked your audience or anything like that, and your chickens have come home to roost. And the idea that this Avengers team that they had, which was just like Z-list Avengers, was ever going to work, obviously, they were always going to have to go back to Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth, Scarlett Johansson, all that stuff, because this was not it. It was never going to work because it was a bunch of losers, heroes that nobody cares about. There's also a link in the video description.